Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. I'm Reed Price, and today David Harrison is here to talk about politics with us, and we'll get to that in just a minute. I want to start by acknowledging that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water, who have been celebrating and with a little trepidation with the tsunami. Participating in the canoe journeys. They have lived on these waters of the Saley Sea since time immemorial, and we can learn from them about how to be good stewards of these lands and waters. Also, thanks to Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island, which sponsors Something to Talk About. They offer independent living and assisted living and day and memory care up on Rolling Bay. They also do have day stay and respite care programs. To learn more, call them at 206-594-1010, 206-594-1010, or check out fieldstonecommunities.com. Every month we hear from David Harrison. We're grateful for that. He shares his analysis of the national political scene. And thank you once again, David, for joining us.
Glad to do it, Reed, and hello, everyone. And our monthly audience varies, but we're also heartened by the number of people who watch it in between. I just got back from the woods 2 hours ago. This is the 25th year that Cindy and I and Alice and David Charette have taken 12 couples to hike for 5 days. But yeah, we had something that happened there that I want to start with. My 3 topics today are whether the world is on fire, whether we're going to take back the United States Senate, and what's happening with tariffs. On this first subject, I did a little survey. We happen to have a federal appellate judge with us, and he was giving news on what's happening in the courts, which isn't exactly what we want, but our position has had several significant victories. And I did a survey with these 24 people about politics in America. And in the discussion, first, I was kind of surprised, given that the party not in power usually takes back the House 2 years into a presidential term, that only about a third of these folks think we will. I think they're just suffering from shock. And but then somebody raised their hand and said, well, what's going to happen if Democrats take back the House and Trump refuses to honor the elections? To me, that shows how far we've fallen. Yeah. That's ridiculous. I share the collective pain of people who wish Donald Trump would be president. But if that happened, there would be 8 million people in the streets, and the market which Donald Trump loves, would drop by 50%, and he would lose his majority in both houses. So I just got me meditating on, when do you know that when do you think you know that you're in a situation that could eventually reverse itself? Nonetheless, you've suffered major damage, or Medicaid recipients have. And when do you know you're falling into the abyss and you're wondering whether you're ever going to get out? If you were, for example, 1931 in America certainly felt like an abyss, or back when the banks were failing and there was no work. And weirdly enough, and also once Roosevelt started doing things like in 32, like the WPA, it felt like an abyss for the Republicans too. They thought that Roosevelt was assigning unlimited powers to the federal government, so they weren't so happy. Everybody was thinking that the world as they knew it might be ending. 1939, it certainly looked like, before Hitler turned to the east, it certainly looked like whatever resistance Churchill was mounting, that the British Isles would be overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and that Hitler would remain in the ascendancy. 1861, as some of you know, Lincoln wasn't inaugurated till April, and he had won in November, and it certainly seemed like the Union might not survive to see him inaugurated. So it turns out, of course, none of those turned out to be the abyss that was feared, that is, the nation. I said to this group last night, the Republic will stand. I don't have any doubt about that. Even on the issue, oh my God, from the East, the Oracle. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. Even the issue of whether the Supreme Court with or a high appellate court makes a ruling whether that Trump doesn't like, will they follow the ruling? I think there are so many systemic ways to get him within what are obviously bizarre boundaries for behavior, but get them inside the furthest boundary I think is still there, not least of which is the market itself. When you're a billionaire, you love, at least a lot of billionaires love a specific number, and they hate to have it go down by 20, 30%. So basically what I'm saying is it's ultimately disempowering to be overwhelmed with despair. I hate watching the news too, but I never, ever think that the republic for which we stand is over. I never think that. And you know what? It's never true. So it's good I don't think it. I think it's time for us to get our stuff together and realize that's why I occasionally note that it was a self-inflicted wound in the first place. Donald Trump didn't win because MAGA is a majority position. We handed him the election. That's unfortunate. Anyway, however he won, our chances of winning the House and perhaps the Senate, the House in 2026 and the presidency in 2028 are excellent for many reasons, among which is the fact that the MAGA aura, bizarre hold that he has on a certain part of the electorate is not transferable. Certainly not to those two jerky sons of his. I mean, what do you think they would poll against Andy Beshear? They might have 35%. It's not transferable. Who is the heir apparent? Ron DeSantis? I don't think so. I think we're getting pummeled by a movement that doesn't have a natural successor, which is to our advantage. At any rate, I'll stop there. My meditation, my first of three topics is we need to get a grip. I understand how sad we are, but now is the time for the resistance, not for the blues. Blues are okay. I can take a walk, see a movie, read a book, despair a bit, but we have to fight like hell, and that's what we should be doing. Questions, thoughts, and concerns before we talk about the Senate?
Well, I just wonder, there's been a lot of ink spilled about the Democrats in disarray and the challenge that although there is not, you've been down this road before, there is not at this point a clear leader or pair of folks who are the kind of the leadership of the Democratic Party. And there's some division about what the right response is to MAGA. Is that overblown? Is it going to work itself out by the time we get to ballot box time?
I think it's very real in the moment, but I don't think it has anything to do with the ability of Democrats to run a serious take back the House campaign next year. So, like Harry Reid, I mentioned before on this channel, like Harry Reid, Schumer's does not have the capacity to be our national spokesperson. That's why Chris Murphy and Cory Booker and those kinds of folks are trying to eloquently articulate a sort of a consolidated position. The other day, Senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown, ex-senator, was saying Democrats need to get their act together with regard to the working man. I agree with that. I don't think any of the kinds of battles over accommodation versus attack are any different than parties have at any time. We don't have a national leader because we're not set up to have a national leader when we don't have anybody in the majority position. Governors are not the type that yield to other governors and say, "Oh, you're the national leader." Bernie's has articulated he's not a national leader. A lot of Democrats don't share Bernie's politics. Chris Murphy's doing spirited things, but he's a junior senator. So no, and it's not Gavin Newsom. What's interesting to me is the number of people are already Googling away Andy Beshear, which is interesting. It's a long time from now, but he's got an exploratory committee. Somehow, a red state Democratic governor seems appealing, and there are some people who are chromosomally enchanted. Even though Hillary won by 3 million votes, they think we need to run a man. I don't feel that way, but I do think he's appealing. He's my son's age, which it's about time we ran up like a 48-year-old person, somehow deciding to run an 81-year-old person, sort of my age, a little older, didn't work out so well. At any rate, I think we should be the party of generational change, and I think the future is bright. And I think the issue of what really stupid things we have done besides running Joe, it's a fair issue. I think we generated inflation by being blithe about whether we were doing that. I think we had no tenable position on immigration. But if you look at virtually everything that's being debated in America today, we have the majority position. And I think that will sustain us into next year's election. The issue of whether the big, beautiful bill will be the preeminent thing that helps us win back the House, I'm not so sure. It's a long time from now. And remember, even though they're throwing 10 million people off Medicaid and creating a $4 billion trillion increase to the deficit. Remember, they're doing that slowly. A lot of those cuts intentionally don't happen until after November 2026. So I think actually, in terms of today's news, Epstein has as much chance as being a big issue for Republicans next year as these things, the disclosures just keep on coming. And whatever Donald Trump ever said or wrote to Epstein will come out. And there's a whole branch of independents and Republicans that hate that. And whatever comes out, it'll be sleazy and it will be hurtful. The thing that could really determine the output of the 2026 election is what just did, and that is if with the current trade actions even kick inflation to 4.5%, he'll get blamed for it as much as he'll say it's not his fault. So that takes me to the Senate issues. Right now, Donald Trump is making it harder to be a U.S. Senator. So the featured story of yesterday is him kicking the living daylights, calling 91-year-old Charles Grassley a Republican in name only. And this is all over the blue slip. The blue slip is when the Senate Judiciary Committee gives the home state senators a chance to weigh in on federal district court appointments and U.S. attorney appointments in their state. Kathleen, did you have something? No, in their state. So when I was working for Maria Cantwell, when Bush was president, that happened, and it happened in reverse, and it's happened forever. It doesn't mean that a blue slip can't be overcome, especially if there's one Republican, one Democrat in the Senate from that state. It means it's taken very seriously. And in matter of fact, they aren't going to ignore the blue slips from 10 senators, especially if there's two with regard to appointee. And Trump isn't going to get the acceleration that he wanted. And somebody was stupid enough to have him attack Grassley. Occasionally, there's something that 6 or 7 Republicans won't do, and eliminating blue slips is something they won't do, just like they won't eliminate the filibuster rule, which unwisely a whole bunch of Democrats thought we should do 3 years ago when Biden was president, and which it would have just killed this right now. So what Donald Trump does is make it harder to be a U.S. senator. So he just executed Tom Tillis. How smart is that? You're trying to keep your Senate majority, and you open up a seat that we might have found harder to win. And now the chairman of the DNC is running against, instead of Tillis, and we're running a very popular former Democratic governor, Roy Moore. So we're in immensely better situation than we were 2 months ago. And so I was always saying on this page and elsewhere that we had very little chance to take back the Senate, and it's still not a huge chance, but this is how it works. Susan Collins won 6 years ago against Speaker of the House in Maine after trailing in the polls. And the issue is, in Maine, are they so disheartened by Donald Trump that they'll kick out Susan Collins? They might. Democrats want Governor Janet Mills to run against her. Her negatives in Maine are huge. And Trump just attacked her, of course, to be helpful to her. And so I think it's our second take back is definitely Maine. Well, where we need 4, where are our third and fourth? Our third could possibly be Ohio. When Vice President Vance was named senator, they had a 2-year appointment, and Houston, I think his name is, has to run, and Charles and Schumer just has been meeting with Sherrod Brown to see if he'll run against Houston. So Kamala lost by 10 points in Ohio. Sherrod Brown lost by 4. That's a 6-point difference running against MAGA, and that might be good enough this time around. Right now, the congressional generic vote is +3 for us. That could be enough to get Sherrod Brown back in the office, although he's considering running for governor instead. If he would do that, that would be 3, and then we'd be sorely pressed. That would maybe the best we could do. What that would do, of course, it would give Murkowski McConnell a little bit more leeway. The fourth, with us having to defend seats, the fourth would have to be Texas or Iowa. Iowa even harder. What happened in Texas is we ran Colin Allred, and he did not do as well as Beto O'Rourke, but he ran in a harder year. And he ran also 5 points into MAGA. He got 5% of Trump voters voted for Allred, which is good. And what we're hoping is John Cornyn, who's the not moderate senator from Texas, is going to get beat in the primary by the maniacal Ken Paxton, who a lot of Republicans don't like. So that'd be one of those give back opportunities where Trump helps the least electable Republican to win, and then we sneak in by running somebody who's basically a centrist Democrat like Colin Allred. So that would be what would have to happen to get us to 4. I think it's extremely likely that we'll that Hakeem Jeffries will be Speaker of the House, and we'll get that majority. If the 3% generic congressional vote holds, we'd take back 18 seats. So I think that's good news. Senate is harder, as I just explained, and we would have to defend Michigan, where Gary Peters is leaving. Should be okay. I grew up in Michigan. I still don't see how we ever turned into a swing state. The hard one would be, remember 6 years ago, we won John Ossoff's seat because Trump I was so busy looking in the mirror that he made it possible. I don't know how we could defend, but that's not any easy task. There's 22 Republican seats up, 13 Democrats. Those should be our only vulnerabilities. If anything else is vulnerable, it'd be Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire, or what's the other one? I wrote it down. Or I don't think so, Gina Smith in Minnesota. So we have to defend all those 4 and take 4. It's not impossible. It really depends on if inflation's at 3%, much less likely. If it's at 5%, much more likely. If there's a huge Epstein scandal, more likely. Or something else could happen. Something else always happens. So who knows what could happen? To say nothing for the fact that he's getting on in years and his health isn't so great. So that makes it especially delicious that he's reinstituting the president's certification advancement of physical fitness for youth. What an exemplar for that, Mr. Drive around in your golf cart. Anyway, that's my story on the Senate. A lot is to be determined, but this is the first time on this call that we've seriously considered the possibility that we could take it back. And even if we took back 2, it creates the opportunity for the usual sellouts to get more leverage. Murkowski, Collins, if she wins, McConnell, and then it's even a bargaining chip for John Thune. In my blog, I wrote a satire that was a confession letter from John Thune, and I thought it was so obvious that I didn't need to put quotation marks around confession. That I got all these letters from people saying how wonderful it was that John Thune was confessing to accidentally killing Americans. So we hope for things. That's what John Thune would say if he could speak openly. He's not the person that he's become. And we're back to the usual reason why people stay on. Tom Tillis told the truth the day he said that he wasn't running. He said what a monstrosity the big beautiful bill was. And any number of these folks would do that if they wanted to give up the Senate position. There has been nobody better in the history of the Republic at recriminations than Donald Trump. And they don't want to end their political careers. They just don't. So that's my thinking on the Senate. Questions, thoughts, your own thoughts on this matter?
I'll just throw out that unfortunately at this stage in our cultural life, satire and parody are dead because it.
That's right. Yeah, he just threatened to sue Oprah over Kamala's underlying financing of those events, and threatened to sue Obama for treason. So it is hard to figure out what it's really. I mean, when you beat up on a 91-year-old senator, the hell of it is Charles Grassley's big accomplishment. Charles Grassley came out of, there was a Republican governor of Iowa who was Dan Evans. His name was Bob Ray. And Charles Grassley grew up in a Dan Evans Republican culture. And how far at 91 he's had to move to suck it up and be Trump's man. It's a long ways because Charles Grassley was almost the inventor of inspectors general in these departments. And Trump killed a lot of Grassley's inspectors general. The reason why somebody like that isn't going to say, well, that does it, I'm off the reservation, is the other reservation is too far away. Charles Grassley is not a Democrat. He's not even a conservative. He's not a shared brown Democrat. There's a huge gulf there. So one of the reasons they don't do it, even Lisa Murkowski doesn't do it, is she'd be the closest to doing it, but she's not a Democrat as much as she agonizes over Donald Trump. So what
I did not expect that they could hold their nose that hard and approve Bove, but they did. And when I hear from you now, I did not know Charles Grassley's history. That basically Bove had already been called out twice by whistleblowers for absolutely incriminating and disgusting behavior.
Well, I thought back when Matt Gaetz was going to be Attorney General, I thought 2 or 3 of these folks are not going to make it. But that depended on McConnell, Collins, Murkowski, and others to stand up. And remember, all this time Manchin was standing up to Biden. A, he was Biden's friend from 30 years along, and B, he wasn't running again. So it's hard to stand up when you want to keep your job. I'm not forgiving them. I'm just noting. Other questions on the Senate? Nothing on this, Christina. I would think you would give us a comment.
Well, I'm sure that you've covered this before. I mean, I understand you wanting to keep your job, but to the point that you are so cowardly that you won't stand up for the oath that you took, I think that that is something that I cannot reconcile. I just watch and I watch and I watch and I go, wow. That it's heartbreaking.
How do you take the oath and look in the mirror? It's because there's more than one issue. So what you say to yourself is well, I didn't stand up there, but I'm helping in this way. This would be true of Susan Collins. There's any number of small appropriations issues that to this day she wins. So she's saying, I can do this for PEPFAR or U.S. AIDS funding, or I can do this for that. I can't if I'm dead. So that's the story. You tell her yourself. I think I said on the screen before that David Frum, the speechwriter, was saying that every politician has one line they will not cross. And he was talking about Vance. And they said, well, when you knew Vance so well, what was the line that Vance wouldn't cross? And the answer is Trump. That it was unthinkable that he would turn toward Trump. He thought he was a potential despot and a moronic. He thought he was what he actually is. Anyway, yeah, it's surprising. It would be a little easier if they didn't have to assemble 3 or 4. So what they're doing, as I said last month, they're trading off their courage into quasi kabuki theater pretend courage, where Lisa Murkowski agonizes and votes, gives them vote they have to have. And Susan Collins agonizes and votes against it, and they have just enough votes. I can promise you there was a conversation going on there between Thune and Murkowski and Collins. As for Mitch, he doesn't have any juice. He hates Donald Trump. He just doesn't have any juice. He doesn't want to have his last. McCain was uncommonly bold person, principled person. McConnell doesn't want his last public act to be breaking with the Republican Party. Now, briefly on tariffs. Keep in mind, and we'll close earlier today, unless people have something to say. Before I get into tariffs, I want to say Bob Ferguson just pulled way down from Inslee. Bob Ferguson will be a very solid Democratic governor. He sued Donald Trump 190 million times. Bob Ferguson is down politically because he proposed reductions in spending going forward before he proposed a bunch of tax increases. That's nothing but good politics. Vanguard did the same thing. If you're going to get the legislature, a Democratic caucus, to pass taxes they don't want to do, then you first show, especially Democrats from swing districts, then you show first that you can whittle away at projected spending. And that's all he did that has offended Democrats. So my view is that we should stay tuned and watch him do his job. On tariffs, as you know, we're now in a situation where Trump is executing a lot of them. And some of them are just increases from 10 to 15%, but there's bizarre ones. Switzerland comes in at 39%. It's just bizarre. And of course, he's out after Brazil because Brazil doesn't like his friend Bolsonaro. The things to remember are what he is doing is intentional. What he thinks he can do is put the screws on other countries sufficiently to give a new advantage to American manufacturers and exporters without unduly increasing inflation, or at least giving him a way to pretend it wasn't him that increased inflation in such a manner that he'll boost our economy over time by giving our producers more strength without hurting our consumers who are buying the newly taxed products. That's it. And that requires a couple things. It requires constant lies, like we're holding up Canada because of the fentanyl, which they do not allow across their border. Like it's like a suitcase full of fentanyl a year. So it requires a lot of deliberate prevarication. Still might not work. I mean, all of a sudden at 4.5%, 5%, you know exactly what the media is going to say. They're going to say tariffs have driven up inflation and it's Donald Trump's fault. And he's going to say it's not, and they're going to say it is. And at a certain level, the American people will believe it will agree with the media. So he's hoping to get the economic boost from the tariffs. People don't care that the tariffs collected X dollars. They want the economic boost. Certainly certain swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and so forth, they're attracted to it. But it would happen to have with speed, and you take the auto companies and steel, they can't do it fast enough to give him the upturn that would allow him an answer to any criticisms over inflation. So he's trying. There's intentionality to what he's doing. Sometimes you think he's just crazy, but in this case, that's his plan. What could derail the plan is so far that there's the separate court system for trade is not buying that he has the authority to do these things. Courts have ruled so far that he doesn't, and there's been a stay. He was in appellate court the other day. They don't have an argument, but we'll see. It's quite likely that eventually, at the appellate court level, when they rule against Trump, it'll go to the Supremes, and the Supremes, as is their habit, while it's being litigated for another year, will extend the stay on the lower court order, and therefore they won't make Trump withdraw from these unilateral tariff decisions. They'll give him another year, and then by the time it's ruled, even if the Supremes ruled that he did not have the explicit authority, most of what he's seeking to do will be a done deal. He's disrupted the world trade order, which is his intent. And unless inflation is evident in the next year, then he'll get away with it. The reason why he's beating Jerome Powell with a stick is he's trying to place the blame on any economic disorder onto the Fed. It's a weird set of circumstances, and we don't know how it'll turn out. There was a jobs report today that said we just created 77,000 new jobs, and it revised downward the two estimates for the previous 2 months, meaning by 300,000. Two things happened. The market is reacting now to the tariffs because it's August 1st. The market's way down today, but it makes the market thinks there's now a 70 or 80% chance that the Fed's going to go down a quarter point in September because of the jobs report being so awful. Meanwhile, Trump today fired the person that does the jobs report. For years, when it was a good number, Trump has said, what a wonderful system it is. It's very complex, very formal system, as you know, being out east, Christina. There is no political dance in the jobs report. It's a methodology, tested methodology. It's the best we can do. But Trump fired the guy anyway, said that it was a political jobs report designed to make him look bad, unlike the jobs reports that he liked, which at any rate. So that's all of what's happening. Most likely thing to happen is even if the appellate court rules that Trump's way beyond his tariff setting authority, which he is, the Supreme Court will stay that ruling until they litigate it next year. And meantime, either the tariffs will inflate us to the point that citizens get annoyed, or they won't. And that's why Powell is worried, and why he doesn't want to cut interest rates. He wants to be on the outlook for inflation. He doesn't want to spur something that's inflationary. Anyway, I know that was a world's longest sentence, but that's what's happening on tariffs.
Well, I mean, I think that that firing Erica Mentarfer is like the kind of warning sign for the markets. I mean, they need data to make judgments, right? I mean, that can't work out well in the long term for Trump.
Well, you know, if we made a list of things that we thought were unbelievable.
Yeah, I guess we just said that.
I'm just saying, you wouldn't think, but the market, you know, is about making money. So I'm on the investment committee for Bainbridge Community Foundation, and there's a very excellent investment firm who at a low cost advises us, and they're they think that Trump on tariff issues is crazy like a fox. They think that that it's all bluster, part of the deal bluster, and that he's just if somebody says they're going to shoot you, that they don't mind so much when you just punch them in the face, then get punched in the face. So they think that, although then Trump was wounded because some brokers are saying that Trump lost chickens out taco, and so that hurt his feelings. Yeah, I think the market's ability to reconcile the firing of the person who prepares the jobs report depends on how the market convinces itself that it's going to make money. I wouldn't have thought that Dow and the NASDAQ would be near their all-time highs with the amount of uncertainty that we've had since last November, but that's where they are. And they're really betting that the tax bill, they're betting that Trump underneath this is a secret tariff genius, and they're betting that the tax bill will help them a lot, and they're betting that somehow the uncertainty that it creates will be alleviated over time. That's what the market thinks. Final thoughts, comments, insights, insults?
Well, you started by saying that there was no reason to be feared that the republic was going to fall.
Yes.
But we're ending with the idea that the economy is playing with fire. Christina, you have a comment.
Well, the thing is with the jobs report, I mean, he's gambling all this, but he can't control what is actually happening on the ground. And so people losing their jobs, people unable to find jobs, eventually that is going to boil up, and he can fire anybody that, tells him that the jobs are bad. But when people are at city councils, or when people are calling their representatives saying this is bad, he can't hide from that. Eventually that's going to break, right?
Well, I think that's right. I think if you had to rank the economic news that's worse politically, it's not close. And that is, you could get reelected in a country with 6% unemployment because people are thinking, who has a job? I have a job. I don't think you necessarily lose an election. I mean, it hurts politically for sure, high unemployment levels, but remember, it creates a softer labor market, and those big employers are paying less for those employees because more people are applying for a job. So not every huge corporation loves tight 300,000 new jobs a month and full employment economy because it drives wages up. I'm just saying it's not the automatic winner or loser that high inflation is. I agree with you that it's something's got to give, but there is a zone in there where misrepresentation does well, and so I'm not thinking. I do think that's why Trump pounds on Powell, because they know that hiring is down and he wants to blame Powell. So I think it matters enough to him that he would do that, and that he would pretend that it's the fault of the guy who prepared the estimate. But I think over time, his bigger worry and his bigger threat that he can't mask is inflation, because just like what you said, people know at the city council who's unemployed. They sure know what the cost is at the grocery store. And without it, Kamala would have won.
Lawrence or Bonnie, did you want to say something? I saw you had.
I just sort of encouraged by what you said, David, about not being so afraid, because I've been feeling so afraid. And I felt like this could be the end of us, but I feel like you're giving us some hope that no, that's not going to be the case. So I appreciate hearing you today.
Thank you. I'm not thinking that he would ever put the brakes on himself. I'm thinking that there are a whole bunch of systems and people that know where the brakes are. Well, that was certainly true in 2020 when Joe took over. The number of even Trump, Betsy, education secretary, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Betsy
Oh, DeVos.
DeVos was back channeling to members of Democratic members of Congress about whether Trump was going to try and stay. I mean, now it wasn't Murkowski who was doing that. So I think there are systems and people who want and believe that they are going to make the Republic stand, and so I think that will. I think this is an awful cycle, and that the damage on humans is incalculable. People die because of policies like these, but I think this too shall pass, and that we are required to make it pass.
Okay.
Shall we leave it there, David?
Well, that's good to see you, young people. We'll see you next month.
Thank you very much. I'll echo Bonnie that it's we appreciate your perspective and being able to put the experience of following these things through many, many cycles in perspective for those of us who are just like the rest of TikTok and Twitter living in